Imagine surviving like a literal blazing inferno on a torpedoed ship and then just a couple of years later diving into freezing ocean waters to save another life.
Yeah, only to have your heroics completely buried by bureaucracy for decades, just because of the color of your skin.
It is wild. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are actually standing outside Jerky Yard Studios in Bellevue right now, just looking out at the sky.
Need some fresh air before we get started.
Exactly. And since this drops tomorrow, we have to give you the Thursday, July 2 forecast. So we're looking at clouds giving way to sun, a high near 87, a low near 71, and a 24% chance of rain.
Right, but it's going to feel hotter than that, right?
Oh, definitely. It feels like 89. We've got 72% humidity, 67% cloud cover, a UV index of 8, and west-southwest winds near 10 miles per hour. So it is going to feel incredibly warm and humid out there.
But, I mean, you definitely aren't going to hear us complaining about that.
No way. We both vividly remember the brutal Wisconsin winter, so we will gladly take the heat.
Yeah, it's a very small price to pay when you remember what February actually feels like around here.
So true. Well, let's get right into our mission for today's exploration. We are creating episode 5 of the Books and Brews, Titletown's Patriots miniseries.
Right, and this one is titled The Fallen Packer, Sacrifice, Rescue, and Valor Delayed.
Exactly. Our primary source for this deep dive is the deeply researched material from the Titletown Patriots, Gridiron Valor, and Combat Sacrifice in World War.
And we are specifically looking at 2 monumental Green Bay Packers today.
Yeah.
Guys who experienced vastly different trajectories during World War II.
Right.
First, we have Howard Smiley Johnson, who's the only known Packers player killed in combat. And then we have Emlen Tunnell, a man who survived after repeatedly risking his own life to save others.
Such incredible stories. We'll be right back after these messages, sponsored by Tales from the Frozen Tundra, super fans of Titletown.
You know, reading through our primary source today really highlights how crucial it is to just preserve this history.
Oh, absolutely. Like, think of our sponsor's book, Tales from the Frozen Tundra, as this literal time capsule of Packers fan culture.
Yeah, it captures all those stories, the elaborate costumes, the frozen parking lot mythology.
Right, the sheer dedication of generations of superfans that honestly might otherwise just be forgotten. This project ensures that deeply rooted culture isn't lost to time. Pledge now. Go to Kickstarter and search Tales from the Frozen Tundra.
So getting started with Howard Johnson, before we look at his ultimate sacrifice on the battlefield, we really need to look at his youth.
Yeah, because it sets the blueprint for, well, pretty much everything he does later.
It really does. So Johnson grew up in Tennessee, and when he was just 10 years old, his father passed away.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah, and that loss completely fractured his family. He actually ended up being placed in the Clarksville orphanage.
Wow.
And when you think about an institutional environment like that in the 1920s and 30s, it strips away the typical comforts.
Right, the privacy, the safety nets of a standard childhood.
Exactly. You were just forced to rely on the collective.
It's almost like, I was thinking about this, like an early training camp for his character.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because when you lose the isolated comfort of a traditional family unit, you have to replace it with this communal survival instinct.
Right.
You develop a deep-seated sense of duty to the kids around you because they are literally all you have. It perfectly explains his later heroics, learning to sacrifice his own comfort for the collective good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that institutional energy had to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
For Johnson, it went into an intense multi-sport background.
Like, he played everything.
He really did. Basketball, baseball, boxing, and obviously football. That versatility was his ticket to the University of Georgia.
Wait, didn't he start out pretty small, though?
Yeah, his physical transformation there is just a massive testament to his grit.
Huh.
He started out as a really undersized lineman, like around 160 pounds.
Oh, wow, that is tiny for a lineman.
Right. And without, modern sports nutrition or specialized weight rooms, packing on muscle meant sheer manual labor and just brutal conditioning.
Yeah, lifting heavy things on a farm or whatever.
Exactly. He eventually bulked up to about 195 or 200 pounds. And by his senior year, he actually earned the role of alternate captain.
Which sets the stage for his 1940 arrival in Green Bay. And he doesn't come in as some highly touted draft pick.
Really, not at all.
He arrived as an undrafted walk-on. Just think about the sheer will required to make an NFL roster as a walk-on in 1940.
It's incredible. And over 2 seasons, he played in 22 games, basically just constantly shifting roles to serve the team.
Right, he was a reserve guard, a linebacker, a blocking back,
Yeah.
just filling in wherever the seasoned veterans needed him.
And through all that grinding, His character on the gridiron remained incredibly distinct. The 1940s professional football scene was notoriously rough around the edges.
Yeah, lots of guys who lived pretty hard.
Exactly. Yet Johnson was a total anomaly. They called him Smiley because of his perpetual grin.
That's a great nickname for a lineman.
It is. But beyond the friendly demeanor, he was defined by this really strict discipline and deep faith. Like, he read his Bible every single night,
Wow.
and he completely abstained from smoking and drinking.
Which is exactly the kind of unshakable discipline you want in the trenches of a football game. But then, Pearl Harbor happens.
Right.
And the concept of the trenches takes on a terrifyingly literal meaning. Professional football is instantly rendered secondary. We'll be right back after these messages. Sponsored by Tales from the Frozen Tundra. Superfans of Titletown.
If you're fascinated by the intersection of Packers history and the intense passion of the fan base, you really need to check out the 4th and 20 broadcast.
Oh, yeah. Hosted by Denny Toll and Ricky Rouse.
Exactly. They do an incredible job capturing the madness and, the real dedication that makes Titletown so unique. It's a perfect companion to everything we were talking about today.
So, shifting back from the gridiron to global conflict, Johnson's NFL career pauses and he answers the call.
He did. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in January 1942, and he worked his way up to become a Marine officer, eventually assigned to Company I, 3rd Battalion, 23rd Marines.
But what I find fascinating is that the military actually recognized the value of his athletic background right away.
Oh, yeah. While training in the Pacific, Johnson actually played for the legendary Maui Marines football squad.
I just love that detail. In the middle of mobilizing for literally the most brutal theater of war, they're out there organizing high-stakes football games.
That sounds crazy, right?
It does, but it makes sense mechanically.
Yeah.
The military needed to maintain peak physical conditioning and aggressive morale, and a highly competitive football league does exactly that.
Exactly. It kept their combat edge sharp, and they would definitely need it, because the realities of the Pacific theater were unimaginable. And I want to explicitly clarify a historical misconception here.
Okay, what's that?
While some sources mistakenly claim he earned his first Silver Star at Kwajalein, that is incorrect. He earned his first Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry at Saipan. Gotcha. Saipan, not Kwajalein. Why does that specific distinction matter so much? Because the specific mechanics of what he did at Saipan really define his leadership. So during this fierce Japanese counterattack, his platoon's flank was threatened.
And for those unfamiliar, the flank is like the side or the edge of a military formation. It's highly vulnerable.
Right. To defend it, Johnson deliberately exposed himself to concentrated enemy fire. He didn't just, direct traffic from the rear.
I actually got in there.
Yeah, he engaged in brutal hand-to-hand fighting to hold that line. And later in that same campaign, he repeatedly moved out in front of the defensive lines.
Out into active fire zones.
Yes, to physically drag wounded Marines back to safety.
Wow. There is that communal survival instinct again, exposing himself to pull his brothers out of the fire.
It was a pattern of selflessness, and it culminated on D-Day on Iwo Jima, February 19, 1945.
Man.
The beachhead landing was chaotic, just horrific. Johnson was trying to direct his men off the exposed beach and into a more secure inland assembly area. And as he was moving, he was mortally wounded by fragments from indirect artillery or mortar fire.
Indirect fire, meaning they couldn't even see the enemy shooting at them, just shells dropping from the sky. And we need to make something incredibly clear to you listening. He did not die instantly.
No, he didn't. He suffered catastrophic injuries. Navy corpsmen rushed over to try and treat him. But Johnson looked around and saw that 4 enlisted Marines had also been wounded by the blast.
Even while mortally wounded, he is still acting as their commanding officer.
Exactly. He refused the medical treatment for himself. He literally pointed to his injured men and ordered the corpsmen, "Take care of my men first."
He prioritized his troops over his own fading life.
Yeah. He died later that day.
It is the ultimate sacrifice. And for his actions, we should clarify his military honors. Johnson earned 2 Silver Stars.
Right, and you might see mentions of a gold star in some historical texts. We should clear that up.
Yeah, that is actually a cluster device worn on the ribbon to signify his 2nd Silver Star award. It is not a separate medal.
Good distinction. Today, he is reinterred at the Punch Bowl in Honolulu.
And there is a permanent display honoring him in the Packers Hall of Fame. He holds the solemn status as the Packers' only known combat death. Before we continue, please join us in a moment of silence for Howard Smiley Johnson and every service member who gave their life in defense of this country.
May we never forget them.
We'll be right back after these messages, sponsored by Tales from the Frozen Tundra, superfans of Titletown.
You know, preserving stories of ultimate sacrifice and profound resilience is exactly why projects like Tales from the Frozen Tundra matter.
Absolutely. This Kickstarter campaign has a $3,000 all-or-nothing goal. If that goal isn't met, these incredible pieces of fan culture and local history just don't get printed.
We are asking you to pitch in or share the campaign so this history is secured. Pledge now. Go to Kickstarter and search Tales from the Frozen Tundra.
All right, so we've talked about the finality of ultimate sacrifice, but our next subject, Emlen Tunnell, represents a completely different kind of wartime narrative.
Yes. And to state this clearly right at the top, Emlen Tunnell did not die in combat.
Right.
His story is one of agonizing survival, repeated rescues, and honestly, battling against the very country he was trying to serve.
Because his fight just to get into the military was a hurdle in itself. Back in 1942, while he was playing college football, he suffered a broken neck.
Yeah, doctors basically told him his athletic career was over.
And because of that severe injury, he was outright rejected by both the Army and the Navy.
He was incredibly persistent, though. He finally managed to enlist in the Coast Guard in May 1943.
But this is where the systemic barriers of the era come into play.
Exactly. Because of strict military segregation policies, Tunnell was assigned as a steward's mate.
Meaning?
His primary duties were washing dishes and cleaning the quarters of white officers.
Okay, I have to push back on this because the mechanics of this decision are just baffling. Help me understand the logic here.
There isn't any, really.
Like, the military is fighting a two-front global war. They need every tactical advantage they can get. Tunnell has an elite strategic mind. He is essentially a chess master of defensive football.
Right.
And the command structure looks at a guy with that much spatial awareness and tactical processing power and decides his only value is washing dishes.
It defies all strategic logic. It was pure systemic racism superseding military efficiency.
Yeah.
But Tunnell didn't let that indignity dictate his courage.
Definitely not.
On April 27, 1944, his cargo ship, the USS Etamin, was anchored in Papua New Guinea. They were loaded with like 6,000 tons of aviation gasoline and explosives.
Oh, man.
A Japanese torpedo struck the ship, completely rupturing the hull.
The physics of that much aviation fuel igniting, it turns the ship into an instant inferno.
Exactly. Amidst the chaos, a machinist's mate named Fred Shaver emerged from below decks, and he was completely engulfed in flames.
Wow.
Tunnell bypassed all safety protocols. He ran straight into the fire without any specialized equipment and used his bare hands to beat the flames off his shipmate, literally carrying him to safety.
Surviving a literal fireball with his bare hands. And the crazy part is, that was just the first rescue.
Right. Fast forward to March 17th, 1946.
Tunnell is on the Coast Guard cutter Tampa, moored near Argentia, Newfoundland. A shipmate named Alfred Givens slips and falls into the water.
And we were talking about 32-degree water.
Basically ice.
Yeah. At that temperature, your blood rushes to your core to protect your organs, your muscles lock up, and hypothermia induces paralysis in minutes.
And Tunnell openly admitted he was a poor swimmer. But he plunged into that freezing ocean anyway.
He just jumped in.
Fighting the currents, fighting the rapid loss of his own muscle control, he somehow managed to keep Givens afloat for 15 to 20 terrifying minutes until a rescue line could reach them.
So he survived fire, and then he survived ice. But what followed was this profound bureaucratic failure.
Which is so frustrating.
Nominations for medals for Black service members during that era were routinely ignored or literally buried in the archives. It wasn't until 2011 that the government finally corrected the record.
2011, wow.
Yeah, posthumously awarding Tunnell the Combat Action Ribbon and the Silver Life-Saving Medal.
Decades of delayed recognition. But how does a guy go from washing dishes and freezing ocean rescues to completely changing professional football?
Well, he used the GI Bill to play at Iowa, and then he pulled off one of the boldest moves in sports history.
What'd he do?
He hitchhiked to New York with just $1.50 in his pocket, walked straight into the Giants' front office, and demanded a tryout.
Wait, he just walked in off the street with $1.50 and asked for a job.
He did, and he proved he belonged. He became the Giants' first black player. But more importantly, he completely revolutionized the safety position.
How so?
Before Tunnell, safeties were strictly the last line of defense, basically just backpedaling to make goal line tackles after a receiver caught the ball. Tunnell introduced the concept of playing offense on defense. He used his strategic mind to read the quarterback's eyes, jump passing lanes, intercept the ball, and then run it back like a punt returner.
He turned the defense into an actual scoring threat. Which brings us to 1959. Vince Lombardi takes over in Green Bay, and he specifically brings Tunnell in.
And it wasn't just because Tunnell could still play.
No, Lombardi needed a lieutenant on the field who understood his strategic vision, and he needed a respected veteran leader to help integrate the Packers locker room in a very racially homogenous city.
Yeah, he mentored a young Willie Wood, completely shifted the dynamic of the secondary, and helped secure the 1961 NFL championship.
He was just a pioneer from start to finish.
He really was. He became the first black full-time NFL assistant coach and scout. And in 1967, he cemented his legacy as the first African-American inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That's amazing.
When you put these two men side by side, you see a striking contrast in their wartime experiences, but a shared foundation of incredible valor. Smiley Johnson gave his life directing aid to his fellow Marines, prioritizing their survival over his own as he bled on the sands of Iwo Jima.
While Emlen Tunnell survived literal fire, freezing water, the indignity of military segregation, and decades of delayed recognition.
Right. Repeatedly saving lives only to return home and break color barriers in American sports.
Two men, two different paths, but both embodying the absolute highest ideals of service. Those stories completely redefine what it means to be a Titletown patriot.
They absolutely do.
And it perfectly sets the stage for episode 6, which is going to be the America 250 grand finale. We've spent our time today honoring Smiley Johnson and Emlen Tunnell.
Yeah, but in the finale, we're going to pull the lens back even further.
Exactly. We will be covering other Packers veterans, digging into Green Bay's Revolutionary War connections, exploring forgotten patriots, Native allies, Midnight Riders, and revealing some thrilling new historical discoveries you will not want to miss.
It's going to be packed. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to chew on.
Go for it.
When you walk into a massive, modern sports stadium today, you are looking at much more than a venue for Sunday entertainment. You are standing in a space built on complex, very human foundations.
That's a great point.
Think about how the bedrock of these franchises was laid by men who carried the traumas, the intense disciplines, and the literal scars of global conflicts. What other hidden histories, what other quiet acts of heroism are sitting right there in the bleachers next to you, completely unrecorded?
Happy birthday, America.
Go Pack, go.